You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have about 15 years experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the top 5 stories on our websites and talk about the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving us a positive review on Apple Podcast or whatever platform you use. Finally, to email the podcast, you can reach Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Anna, how's it going this week?
Great. How are you guys?
Pumped up. Jeff? Yeah, feeling a good energy on this one so far.
Lucky number 13.
Yes, and yeah.
So, David, you stopped drinking coffee, I heard.
I did.
But you seem really jacked up.
Yeah, no, I stopped drinking it and I poured it into my eyes. Wakes me up.
This is just your real personality this whole time. I didn't know.
It's one of many. I shake less. That's been nice. You might have noticed on subsequent episodes that there's not a hum. It's just me like vibrating. All right. Our top story this week. Gas shortages could be coming. According to a new report, the U.S. is facing significant gas shortages. But the problem isn't the supply, but rather the number of fuel truck drivers. The National Tank Truck Carriers Trade Association says 25% of tank trucks are sitting idle due to a lack of drivers. Before the pandemic, there was already a driver shortage, but when the pandemic hit and gasoline prices crashed, workers left the industry and trucker schools shut down. Anna, this is a huge supply chain problem.
Yeah, and there's been a talent shortage in trucking for years. For years. I used to cover this industry when I first got out of college, and the truck makers would talk about how much design work they'd put into making rigs easier to drive because it was too hard to attract well-trained drivers to the field. And this was a good 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But the part of the story that got my attention was when they talked about the average turnover rate of a fuel tank truck driver, which they said is 50% on average, which is crazy. But what we didn't mention in the story is that turnover went up to 70% during the pandemic.
Wow.
And obviously the bottoming out of the oil industry caused people to flee. There's no doubt about that. But there's got to be something else there, right? The work is described as tough and strenuous, and that's not hard to believe. And maybe people just aren't being paid enough to do it. I mean, people will work on oil rigs and in fracking and doing those other things that are dangerous and dirty. People do them because the money's good. And these are $20 an hour jobs, these fuel tank truck driving jobs, and they require weeks of training. And clearly it's not a prospect that is drawing people in right now.
No, I actually looked into that a little bit more, and I looked into the American Trucking Association's 2019 truck driver shortage analysis. And there were a few things that stood out that they said that needed to be addressed. And number one, obviously, increase driver pay, give them more time at home, lowering the driving age, which is a minimum of 21. And that just seemed odd to me because there's going to be a huge pool of candidates between 18 and 21. Transitioning military personnel to truck drivers, better treatment, and reduced wait times by the supply chain. Did you know that one of the biggest complaints that drivers have is that they're mistreated at these shipping and receiving facilities?
Oh, really?
Some of them don't even let them use the bathroom,
That's
is just
terrible.
Right? I mean, that was the one thing I ask at a job, interview is, can I use the bathroom there? Jeff, it seems like a real problem.
To ask?
Well, apparently. It's my dad was a trucker and, he's had problems for years. No, no, but Jeff, this is a real problem that could cause.
Yeah, and like Anna alluded to, it's been going on for a while. We've seen this also in the food logistics side of things, especially with produce, because it is such a timely delivery. It's become extremely competitive. It's difficult to find drivers, and then it's kind of an opposite dynamic because a lot of those drivers make very good money because they can charge more because there are fewer of them. Here we're looking at a little bit, produce is a commodity, but this is probably even more of a commodity type item because everybody needs it in such great demand. But there is a lot more regulatory concerns, obviously, when you're dealing with an explosive chemical that they're hauling here. And there isn't a lot of love for these guys, let's be real. They are kind of underappreciated in terms of what they're doing. And yeah, we're not always happy to see semis driving past us on the highways.
As long as they honk when I do the arm motion, even at still a relatively young age.
Of course. I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm just going to say that the other solution that they talked about is autonomous trucks. But I think that could also be part of the problem. With people getting into it. If I'm 18 years old and I see autonomous trucks down the road in like 10 to 20 years, maybe less, I mean, that doesn't give me a great job prospects.
Well, I think even with those autonomous trucks, there's still going to be somebody there for a while. They're not going to be completely unmanned for even longer. One would assume. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's also because they're such usually pretty good distances that these guys are going. I mean, these are long hauls. So it's a tough job, and it's frustrating to see that they're having this kind of trouble continue in terms of finding people. And the pandemic obviously hurt too, with a lot of the training sites being shut down. For me, the one thing that jumped out is we've done some coverage on the Biden administration shutting down a lot of pipelines, which is also contributing a little bit to this gas shortage potentially. If we've got fewer trucks on the road, we're shutting down pipelines, which it's not just Keystone. It's also, we ran an article on the Enbridge 5 line, which kind of runs through the Canadian, Michigan, Wisconsin border. And they're shutting that down potentially in early May. Well, if we've got trouble with truckers and we can't find enough folks to haul it, why are we shutting down pipelines as well? I know there's environmental concerns, but with this one in particular, over the last 15 years, this Enbridge line, there's been 3 incidents. It's been charged with, I believe it was less than 21 barrels of products over the last 15 years. So while historically I can appreciate some of the issues and the environmental conflicts when it comes to dealing with pipelines, it seems like over the last 15 to 20 years, they've become much safer, more reliable, and they seem to answer a supply chain need here.
Yeah.
And yet
I think
this is a focal point.
Yeah, no, I think shutting them down is part of more of a larger strategy of kind of sustainable going. I don't think that they realize the implications of a trucker shortage as they've been trying to shut down these pipelines.
Well, that's a big picture, though. I mean, the other thing here, looking at some other stats, not only is it statistically safer pipelines as opposed to trucking, it's also 4 times less expensive. So there's a lot of other benefits here. I'm sure Anna's got some strong feelings on the environmental side, but I just think when you look at this pragmatically, if we're looking at getting gas and we're still using it, it's not just gas, it's also oil for other things like heating homes. These pipelines, I think we're rushing a little bit in some of these decisions.
But don't you still need a trucker to get it from the end of the pipeline to the gas station?
Okay, but then if that's the case, and I'm not going to claim to be...
More pipelines.
No, but you're still, in that instance, you're not looking at a multi-day haul. Yeah. You're looking at something that's probably much more manageable in terms of a regular route. So it's going to be a little bit more attractive to somebody who's looking for a job as opposed to being gone for longer periods of time.
You know what's weird though? The report that I read on this, they said that most of these jobs are short haul. And so they're more appealing in the sense that there is less time away from home and they still can't get people to do it.
And to me, that just sounds like they're not being like the compensation's not there. It's not worth it to them to even pursue that job.
Well, it just may not be competitive within this particular sector of the long haul. Because like I said, in some other areas, these guys are getting paid. But it's industry wide in terms of a trucker shortage.
It definitely is, yeah.
Our next story this week is a manager charged with stealing from a cable manufacturer. The former operations manager of Megaphase, a Pennsylvania cable manufacturer, has been accused of stealing $675,000 from the company from 2015 to late 2020. Stephen Golas, 34 years old, was charged with 8 criminal counts, including theft, forgery, tampering, and fraud. Golas worked for the company for 10 years and allegedly set up a fake raw material supplier account that he paid with the company credit card. Megaphase makes coaxial cables and connectors serving the communications, electronics, defense, and aerospace sectors. He was fired, obviously, after the company uncovered suspicious activity. I mean, Anna, if you're going to fake a company, you can't fake a raw material supplier. They're going to need the raw materials.
Well, I mean, in his defense, it took him 5 years to figure it out.
True.
But I know that I'm not like knocking this company because...
How dare they?
Right? You're just saying that
exactly.
switch to toiletries or something, sir.
It's I don't know. It was an unfair position that they were put in. But I don't know. I read some other coverage of this incident and I found a statement from the CEO of Megaphase, Bill Pote, affirming that this was a really trusted employee. He called the situation, quote, sickening, and said he didn't believe it at first. But what was also reported was that Pote said the company didn't have much theft insurance, but thankfully was able to recover anyway.
Mm.
And they say that they're now taking steps to make sure this doesn't happen again. But I think it's a good warning for SMBs. I know smaller businesses need to place a lot in the hands of a few people. And you need to trust those people who work for you. But some of these safeguards, especially from an insurance standpoint, they really can't be overlooked because just like in this case, sometimes the unexpected occurs and it could be enough to sink your business. Luckily in this case, it didn't. But not every business can absorb that kind of a blow and continue to operate.
Right? Jeff, did you see the mugshot? He had an honest face.
They all do, right? I mean, a couple of things with this. First of all, we've been hearing a lot about during the pandemic, it's given manufacturers an opportunity to invest more in their internal systems. And with this being detected recently, you kind of wonder if this wasn't maybe a little bit pandemic driven. There was a little bit more time to look at the books. And also maybe there were some investments just in having internal visibility. With a lot of the software investments that are being made now, all of this is connected. Mm-hmm. You can see why we had to order more inventory, where it went, how it got there, who we were paid by, all of that kind of stuff. And with more people being able to see all of that transactional data and how it impacts your inventory and supply chain, hopefully there will be less of this. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is these aren't just like low-end connective hardware. I mean, this isn't stuff you're buying at Best Buy. They serve some high-tech industries here. So number one, that's going to raise some obvious red flags. The other thing is he wasn't real subtle here. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at $675,000 over the course of 5 years, man, I mean...
You can't keep going with that. Yeah.
Either stop or like don't be so greedy. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's sort of at the heart of it.
So I mean, that's a really interesting point about the potential from a software catching this. I was thinking that it's a raw material supplier that you're faking. And what did we hear from every company as we've had supply chain issues over the last year is that they're dipping deeper and deeper into their inventory. Yeah. And I feel like that's what happened. They thought they were getting to the end of it and found it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
So Anna, I was kind of interested because I did see that the CEO said that Golis was living above his means, but that he doesn't expect to recover the money. So did he say anything about how the company is going to be able to recover, or is it just that it wasn't such a big loss that it's going to sink them permanently?
Yeah, I don't know if it was, obviously this took place over the course of 5 years. Mm-hmm. So maybe, the money's gone, but it wasn't all, 675 in one hit, mm-hmm. Which would make a difference, I would think. He said that the business was functioning well. So hopefully they're having a good year. We're seeing a lot of uptick and sort of, a lot of supply, pent up demand mm-hmm. in manufacturing. So maybe they have a lot of new orders coming in and they're just like trying to move on, because it didn't sound like they were going to get any of it back, as you said.
They are in a good market category for a bounce back. I mean, these are the types of products that are seeing a real surge now when you look at connectivity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, what was it? Automotive, aerospace, defense.
A lot of defense and communication stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty well insulated in there. Connector joke. Our third top story.
Connected joke.
Our next story this week is the world's largest firefighting plane might be sold for COVID-19 response. After investing tens of millions of dollars into upgrading the global supertanker, the world's largest firefighting airplane, the revenue coming mostly from contracts with the U.S. government in California didn't produce enough for Alterna Capital Partners to continue funding the tanker. On April 19th, Alterna grounded the supertanker, but has since received several offers to buy it and turn it into a freight carrier aircraft. The COVID crisis has created a demand for large aircraft to carry around PPE, vaccines, and other supplies, and the company says it will entertain offers, but two Washington legislators say that it needs to remain operational as is because it's, quote, the biggest and one of the best weapons in battling catastrophic fires. Jeff, it seems like, yeah, we should keep that around.
Yeah, it's sort of conflicting, right? Because, I mean, last year was horrible in terms of the damage with the wildfires that we saw. So it's nice to know it's not needed right now. Mm-hmm. But obviously, yeah, I think those legislators actually made some great points in making sure that it is readily available. I mean, the thing hauls 3 times the amount of normal firefighting planes. So whether it's fire retardant or water or whatever they're throwing down, The ability for it to react in such great quantities and actually fly closer to the fire, I believe, than other aircraft, incredibly helpful. I think what's interesting, and the other part was they weren't talking about a lot of retrofitting costs. So whatever they're going to do, ideally it could maintain its current configuration so it could still be used in case of those types of emergencies.
So they're going to dump rubber gloves and vaccines over communities out of the bottom.
Well, I mean, who knows what's in that retardant material? Maybe it's made of the same thing.
But I think it's interesting because obviously a lot of this demand for a freight plane comes from e-commerce, and a lot of the way the purchasing dynamics have changed due to the pandemic. So for there to be another home or another revenue opportunity potentially for this aircraft or the owners, I think is a positive thing.
Anna, where do you think the tanker is going to wind up? Staying as emergency response or going to become another shipping carrier?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get it like a positive feeling from the story. And the reason I think is because I don't feel like these two applications are created equal, right? So it's, and the issue is not which is more important, rather that the company can't make enough money, obviously, to operate. And I thought it was interesting that that fire retardant is sort of controversial. Did you read the whole thing? That they're talking about like
primarily used in the West.
Yeah, it's primarily used in the West. It's sort of a specialty application that's used exclusively there. So they're not making money on other fires. However, I don't think these catastrophic wildfires are going away. I mean, they're getting worse and worse. Climate change is a contributing factor. So I don't think that like we can really anticipate that we're going to get a break from these, honestly. So I feel like someone, I know, Jeff, you disagree probably because of what the government's role actually is here. But I wish that maybe somebody could step in here from some government entity and pay some kind of retainer fee, or I don't know. It just seems like, some of these events, it's down to critical areas, short windows, and probably every resource is badly needed. So if California, Oregon, Washington, somebody needs this plane and it's not there, that's not good.
Right. This should be an infrastructure cost.
Right. I agree. I mean, somebody in that tri-state area or the state of California, I mean, can't they do something to help retain this in their fleet?
And Jeff, you said that there were, there's not a demand for it right now, but in 2020, there were still nearly 60,000 wildfires that burned nearly 16,000 square miles. I mean,
yeah, it's just not a pressing need right now. And I don't know what the fee structure is that they worked out. Quite honestly, they're responding to an emergency. I don't think there's a lot of ongoing negotiation in that type of situation. I guess we'd have to look a little bit more deeply into why a plane of this size isn't part of a normal fleet operation in this type of situation. I can't answer that. I don't know.
It was, you had mentioned that it carries 3 times. I looked up the stats, and it can dump 19,200 gallons of water or flame retardant in 6 seconds, fly as low as 200 feet, and be refilled in 13 minutes. So, I mean, it's a hell of a tool when it's working.
Just expensive to operate, apparently.
Yeah.
It is weird that this is sort of a private entity that's operating this plane, though. I never would have guessed that.
No, me neither.
I would have thought that this would be tied to either some sort of federal, land preservation type of agency. But it is unique dynamic. Yeah,
I agree. That's why I found the story to be so alarming because, you sort of are putting a lot in the hands of a private enterprise. And, who expects this company to operate at a loss? Nobody, right? So if they have to sell the plane to cover the costs or to make any money, then that's what they have to do. But then we're doing something wrong, I think.
I mean, couldn't the same be said about how like ambulance companies are all privately owned?
Yeah, don't get me going there. That's
alrighty. Next story. Top story next week: the privatization of ambulances.
It's not that they're no.
You almost got him.
Yeah. Hey, when I shattered my arm, I had that bill too, and I'm like, maybe I could have walked there.
Oh.
Another story. Our next story this week: late taxes, a troubling sign for automaker. Lordstown Motors, an Ohio-based electric truck startup, failed to pay $570,000 in real estate taxes due in early March. In another troubling sign for a troubled company. It is yet another troubling sign for a troubled company. In February, the company's stock plummeted after the SEC inquired into the company, and 4 different lawsuits came from investors who claimed to have been defrauded. In January, the company's endurance pickup truck prototype caught fire in 10 minutes into the initial test drive in Michigan, and the tardy tax payment was blamed on unfortunate administrative error. The check's in the mail. And the company will also have to pay a 10% penalty of around $57,000. And I feel like, except for when they announced Lordstown Motors was coming to Lordstown, Ohio, other than that, it's been all bad news out of there.
It's been like scandal after scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if this is really an administrative error, like the timing is just incredibly bad to make that mistake. And, you know, it's a very young company. It's already been accused of, as you said, defrauding investors. And those accusations stem from the claim that Lordstown was basically lying about how many pre-orders they had. And some of it, the evidence is like pretty compelling. Like a report tracked that 14,000 orders back to a company with no fleet that was registered at an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird. But not only that, lawsuits, not just from investors, have begun to pile up, including one that was modified, I think this week from, you know, the electric car company Karma. So Karma is alleging that Lordstown stole trade secrets, that they kind of headhunted a bunch of their people and they stole a bunch of trade secrets, and they're accusing Lordstown of ripping off their infotainment system. So just a lot going on there. And to me, it just like, it makes you wonder how much due diligence is actually being done before a company like this, who has essentially no product, can go public. I mean, they're a public company, and, you know, so they're sitting on the stock market, and are they like all smoke and mirrors? We are just starting to find out now, I think, like all that. It just, I don't know.
Maybe it was their connection to GM. You know, they seem to have a pretty close relationship there.
I don't know. I mean, we want this to happen so badly. I mean, we want this to work out. And really the whole electric vehicle, even though I've been maybe less favorably promoting a lot of electric vehicle initiatives in the U.S., but I mean, we want this to work out, especially for all the reasons that have been mentioned here. What it could offer to this community, the fact that it's there's a legacy to this location. But then when you throw in all this stuff, beginning with January, with the odd test results on a prototype that
by
caught
odd
on fire.
test results, you mean bursting into flames?
Yeah. Well, and there was some weird dialogue surrounding that too from Lordstown that obviously didn't seem like they're being very transparent. Anna mentions the weird order that came in from an apartment down in Texas, and there's a part of me though that just, as much as I want to be positive, there is a part of this that makes you wonder, can this work? Not just Lordstown. Obviously, there's some internal issues there, but is this a viable entity overall? I was looking at some stuff from Business Insider. Now, globally, the number just of electric vehicles overall is up 45% from last year. Okay, even during the pandemic, when so many things were slowed down, EV sales were still up globally. But in the U.S., they were down like 6%. So, you know, China is way up over 1 million EVs. The UK is up over, I think, like 1.5 million. We're sitting at about 300,000. Okay. So you just kind of wonder what the dynamics here was. Lordstown, you know, kind of anticipating a bigger push and a bigger consumer demand for their product. That didn't come through because of the dynamics of the U.S. auto buyer. And it kind of pressured them to maybe doing some things they did not want to do and got bad results.
Maybe they were just hoping it would shift and keep pace with the rest of the world. I mean, it's hard to say, you know, the rest of the world is wrong and we're right.
I mean, it's just what the market says.
Yeah,
you know, it's just what the market says. We're not buying as many electric vehicles. Now, some of that is pandemic related. There was less of a supply there, but that was kind of universal across the globe. So,
and they haven't even tested the market. They need to put out a vehicle. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's not even been done yet.
Hey, they had it. They rolled it out there. The vice president sat in it. Fine looking product. And I think I read the same report that said, you know, Lordstown Motors has no revenue and no sellable product, misled investors and on both demand and production capabilities. And one of the things that I found interesting, especially when the lawsuits say they're still 3 to 4 years away from having a product go to market, is that a lot of this not only came from investors and business partners, but it came from former employees. So, I mean, when it comes to somebody that I feel should be credible about that,
Mm-hmm.
it would be,
Yeah, that's not good.
Anyway, we hope it turns around in Lordstown. Really do.
Yeah.
Just because that community has been through it the last few years.
Agreed.
Our top story this week has to do with the majestic beaver. Beavers wipe out a town's internet. Last Saturday, residents at Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, woke up to find their internet, cable TV, and cell service all gone. The culprit? Glorious, glorious beavers. Beavers dug 3 feet underground, breached a 4.5-inch thick conduit, and ripped out the cables. The damage was extensive, quote, and crews worked around the clock to restore service by the following evening, which is amazing. Cable caution tape and other materials were found in a nearby dam. So, Anna, another positive upcycling story.
Damn.
Oh.
I was
Well done.
I was so pleased that this story was a hit with our readers because I got a huge kick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're all trying to do important work from home that requires the internet, but the fact that these beavers own this town that was like built within their ecosystem is sort of funny. I don't know. They're like, get out of here.
Right?
We were here first.
Well, I love how it was called a uniquely Canadian disruption.
But that's not even true. Like it reminded me of another story that we covered last year about a small town in Wales where they experienced slow internet and poor connectivity every morning at like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And it was like 18 months of this. And then after an insane amount of detective work by the ISP, they discovered that an elderly couple would watch the news at the same time each morning using this super old tube TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it was creating this electrical interference that was interrupting the signal. So the broadband provider said that it was actually more common than you'd think, but he never said anything about how common it is for beavers to dig up fiber optic cable and then use it to reinforce their dam. So it turns out there's a lot of weird ways to wipe out an entire town's internet. Just so you know that if something weird happens, report it, but then also like get out there with a monocle on and like a pipe. I don't know, like figure it out, Jeff.
Well, what it reminded me, we have a shared appreciation for that show, Homestead Rescue.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this just seems like one of those, like, they show up at this couple trying to do something off grid and like, oh, we can't get to the water because of the beavers, you know?
Yeah.
Just it's kind of crazy, yeah, that there be an animal causing such a 21st century problem.
Well, access to broadband internet, I can't believe is still such a struggle in areas of the world. Like, even in northern Wisconsin, we have a cabin up in northern Wisconsin. And when everyone went to work from home and went to school from home, some couldn't because they didn't have the internet. They didn't have, fast enough internet to watch their teacher via video, which is just crazy to me. And the other thing is they finally get grants to invest in the infrastructure. And their idea is put up a couple of towers and they put what they say is a Bible-sized antenna on your roof in the Northwoods, which is just already covered with critters anyways. That thing is going to be in the next dam. And,
Well, they tried going underground. Beaver just got to it.
Well, that's true. That is an argument that I'm completely flawed. Like, but I don't know. In a way, this is life finds a way. But I still think that broadband access is a greater issue.
No, agreed. They do need to find a way. This is just becoming such a staple of everyday life. There does need to be more reliable ways.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something, again, I don't think this is unique. Like they knew the beavers were out there. This isn't.
Well, and they prepared. The conduit was 4.5 inches thick.
Yeah, that's true. It was, but like you said, they found a way.
Right? It's just like, what do? You just, as a technician at the hole, just start applauding. Good for you guys.
Yeah, they went for it.
Moving on to In Case You Missed It. Anna, what's your In Case You Missed It this week?
All right, guys, in case you missed it, Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX and popular topic on this podcast, is hosting Saturday Night Live on May 8th. People have feelings about this. He's certainly not the first corporate exec to do this. We know that like Donald Trump did, Steve Forbes did. And I'm not sure he's any more controversial than like many of the actors and musicians and Hollywood types who have appeared.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, it sounds like some SNL cast members are throwing shade a little bit on social media.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know if it's because he's so obscenely wealthy. He did make some controversial statements recently about about the vaccine, and saying that it was safe, but he wasn't going to get it. I don't know. So I think people were a little riled about that. That maybe the timing's not great. And so I don't know for sure, like what exactly is everyone's specific beef, but you can find something to disagree with Elon Musk on if you're a person. I'm sure he's very vocal.
I feel like we're going to watch this episode and our initial reaction will be, I've seen worse.
Well, yeah, I'm going to watch it. I think like, I feel like maybe with SNL, like it's hard to make it worse if it's like a public No, that is actually not at all what I meant, but
I mean, it's already hot garbage anyway, so what is a host going to do to it?
No, what I meant was, guys, if this is a public relations campaign for Elon Musk, it's hard to make somebody less likable when they host SNL because they're in a way at least more relatable or fallible or something. So I think maybe it could help his persona, maybe the way he's viewed from a public relations standpoint. I don't think it will make his the way people view him as worse is what I meant. SNL, I got nothing against you. I still got a lot of love for the Chris Farley years, and that will take you far.
Okay, he's obscenely wealthy and he is controversial at times, but he's charismatic. He doesn't seem to take himself too seriously. And I think that he could do a fine job at it. I think
I could see how he'd be abrasive, though. I mean, the people initially, he's not the most forthcoming guy. I mean, he's dissolved Tesla's press inquiry or outreach department just because he doesn't want to deal with it no more. So,
yeah.
I could see how there is some of that. He was great in Iron Man 2, so, we'll see how it goes.
He was in Iron Man 2?
For about 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, because that was when everyone was calling him the real-life Tony Stark. Just made sense. So, okay, you're in the SNL writers' room. What are the skits that you're pitching? Definitely the people who designed the Cybertruck. And just like, man, you've been playing too many video games. Plus, this is ugly. This looks like bad futuristic armor in a B movie.
How do you really feel?
I think it's nice. You could definitely talk about we've even talked about it here, like just do mission control for the next Starship.
Yeah, there you go.
We got it.
Oh.
Yeah, they're going to do the countdown and they won't be able to get through it because it will keep being interrupted by explosions, just one after the other. 5, 4.
Right? They definitely got a punch at the flamethrower.
Yeah, there's lots of things. You're right.
The boring company, I think you could do some fun stuff with.
Yeah. Oh, right, guys, I got the next thing. We're going to tunnel under everything. We've gone up, we've gone forward, we're going under.
Maybe a look inside the, Tesla, SpaceX, boring company, like product development idea generation conference room.
Right.
What do you got? Anything will work.
It's like him with an Etch-a-Sketch. Like,
no bad ideas, guys.
Yeah. No, just, hey, we're working with it. They're the highly in demand company to work for, I think. Yeah. In case you missed it this week, has to do with Taco Bell because I often run for the border. Taco Bell wants to give old sauce packets a new life. Taco Bell hands out 8.2 billion sauce packets every year, and the packets aren't recyclable. But the company recently announced a new partnership with TerraCycle in an attempt to recycle the flexible film packets. The pilot program will begin later this year. TerraCycle is known for collecting non-recyclable materials like spent PPE at a manufacturing facility, cleaning them, melting them down, and remolding them into a usable hard plastic. And if the pilot is a success, the program will expand and could serve as a case study for other food establishments around the world. And I just wanted to go back to our point about the ketchup packet crisis before, because Kraft Heinz is scaling up to make 12 billion packets annually. And just, I guess I never considered A, how many they made, B, that they were not recyclable, and really that you don't really need them. You don't need them. Like, the sauce is not going to make or break any visit for you, in my opinion. But I don't know. So I like the work that they're doing at TerraCycle. They take a lot of weird materials, and some of it is kind of, they're the company that weaves the old Capri Sun juice boxes into bags and clothing, stuff like that.
Did you just call it
I was going to say
Capri Sun?
Capri Sun? Capri.
Capri-Sun.
Oh my God, I don't know you at all.
Have you guys never, as children, enjoyed stabbing through the bag of a Capri-Sun?
No one has ever called it that. No one has.
Yeah, I believe that my friends
Did
and
you
I
get the
always
generic
used.
versions?
I mean, maybe that was
everybody
it.
else had Capri Sun.
No, it was. I'm pretty sure it was Capri-Sun.
Okay. Okay.
Cut.
Oh wow.
Well, I will investigate that further. I think we're both at a standstill here. It could be mine. It could be yours. We're not sure.
No, I think we're sure.
But so they take all these. Basically, what you do is you buy these receptacles that collect the items, and then they take them, wash them, recycle them. And I just think it's a cool story because they actually make products that are used everything in lawn and garden to picnic tables and Adirondack chairs. And it's so forced. No, but also I was just intrigued to be covering packets again in another week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. It's cool. And I'm not a big user of ketchup packets and sauce packets, so it's 8.2 billion is kind of mind blowing.
Mhm.
Holy
It really
cow.
is.
Also,
I mean, how many is that like per customer? Because wow.
I mean, it's at least well, depending on the worker that you get. I mean, I'm getting handfuls of it.
Because I always just say I don't need any. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah. Anna, your thoughts on would you wear a Capri-Sun garment?
Unbelievable, David. I'm gonna just switch gears entirely. So no, I think TerraCycle is like an absolute champion. They've been doing some really cool stuff, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
So that company is legit, and they've been doing this stuff for a while. So I think that this is actually a real thing, which is cool. And I know that you said they're unnecessary, and I, in a sense, yes, but like I don't think we're going away from individual products with seal.
Oh, true.
You know what I mean? Like now, especially after the pandemic, like the idea of like a community pump of something, I don't think we're gonna see that again. So
That's a good call.
it's a good time to, I guess, make the point of we're gonna do something about this. And you see these on the ground, they're just people don't dispose of them well. So it's a good project. I think I'm hoping to see that it works out.
No, I do think it's a good project, but I was, while traditional, pump handle ketchup dispensers might be going away, there's no reason. I mean, people use the restroom without ever touching anything now.
Totally. Yeah. But I mean, everyone's still like on edge about everything.
Yeah. Jeff, you're in case you missed it this week.
Yeah, as somebody, and I'm not there anymore, but who has definitely helped sell and deliver a large quantity of Girl Scout cookies, I thought this story was kind of interesting because a Google affiliate called Wing, used to be part of Google, now sort of split off a little bit. They're doing a trial in Christiansburg, Virginia, where basically they're delivering a whole bunch of stuff by drone. And one of the products that they've started to deliver door to door is Girl Scout cookies. I thought it was cool just because it's a different use of the technology. It's something that's been talked about forever. I always had a flashback a little bit when looking at this to the Parks and Recreation. Towards the end, they had that big Grizzle. Was that the name of the company? Came in dropping stuff off by drones. Yeah. But I thought this was interesting just because of the pandemic, more online buying. People aren't getting out as much. This was sort of a solution. And helping an organization like the Girl Scouts using drone technology, I thought was kind of cool. I also, again, as somebody who did a lot of door-to-door deliveries, because we would sell them, get the order, then go back and deliver them later on, to be able to load up a drone and send it out would have been a lot easier than, getting in the car in December and trying to hike through some unshoveled sidewalks and driveways and delivering some Thin Mints. So I thought it was a cool story.
The last thing I need is easier access to Girl Scout cookies. But I would say it was cool if you could drive the drone yourself.
Yeah, you are depending on them to make the delivery. You're right. But, it's a good skill for the kids going out and being part of that process. But, man, that delivery, you could be holding on to boxes because, they weren't home or whatever, and then you have to get paid. And
But it still can be good for the kids to be a part of this process because, maybe obviously they're not doing it themselves, but maybe it generates some sort of interest in, the tech area. Maybe it's sort of like a I don't know, helps with that like STEM initiative.
No, I'd agree.
It
Yeah.
definitely seems like a STEM initiative. Finally, moving on to the final thought segment. Jeff, what are your final thoughts this week?
I know we're not there yet,
Mhm.
but it really feels good to have just little things sort of opening up. We're in the office here. We're all doing our thing, getting vaccinated and stuff like that. We've been playing a little softball. Talking to a friend who went to a baseball game. I don't think I've worn this shirt in like a year, just because I didn't have a need to wear something other than, running pants and a t-shirt. So like all those little things are just super encouraging. I don't know. It does a lot, I think, just for my like emotional, mental outlook on stuff. I find myself getting happy and excited about really little things just because we are able to do them now. So it's kind of cool.
No, it's a good time to embrace the little things.
Yeah.
Anna, final thought this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'll jump on what Jeff said, but I got my second shot this week and like feel great, super excited. Like it just feels like, you can kind of see the light at the end of that tunnel. I think we all have kids, so it's like you're limited for a while on what they can do without a vaccine and stuff. But yeah, it's exciting. It's to feel like we're moving forward here.
Did you have any negative effects to the second shot?
Not really. My arm was a little bit sore, but it was actually more sore the first one. And then as far as like all that stuff, people are saying they're getting like flu symptoms and things. I really didn't get that. So it was pretty easy.
We've been talking to a couple of people in the industry, and it's definitely being used as hey, getting the second shot Tuesday, probably not going to be able to make it until Friday, bad. And they're just like, I tell you what, you just come in and we'll see if you can't make it through the day.
We'll see what
I
happens.
have heard a lot about like the day after. Like my wife got the second one. The day after, she was not out, but definitely a little bit down.
Yeah, tired. No, I totally get that. But it was like the people that are, maybe if you're going to schedule me and next Monday I can make it.
I think the more old and beat up your immune system is, the more you can just brush it off. So that must be what happened to me. Mine just like rusted. It's just like, whatever.
Well,
I don't know what this is, whatever.
We were having that conversation at softball, actually, and everyone was talking about, minimal effects. And my one thought was, maybe we're all just getting old enough where we just are used to not feeling well every day.
Like these body aches are just there.
Yeah, no, that's just this morning.
Try to give me fresh body aches. Moderna.
Well, excellent. My final thought this week is to just please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. You can add the email or you can email the podcast at any time at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our newsletters. We really appreciate the support. Doug, we know you love you, or you know we love you. The love's mutual, Doug. Anyway, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti, and this is Today in Manufacturing Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing Podcast.